Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Lucy? Stick around and find out. All right. Well, hi, I'm Peter Franson from Christian Geek Central and Spirit Blade Productions with an uncut review of Lucy. All right, well, the IMDb synopsis is pretty interesting here. It says, a woman accidentally caught in a dark deal turns the tables on her captors and transforms into a merciless warrior evolved beyond human logic. Remember that last phrase. I would add to that that this story is about a woman, Lucy, who's exposed to an experimental drug. She increasingly evolves her ability to access a greater percentage of her brain's power, resulting in the development of incredible superhuman abilities. I was almost going to make a comparison, but I don't want to spoil kind of how powerful she becomes. But she uses these abilities to avoid those hunting her while pursuing her destiny as a higher evolved human. Okay, I'm going to try and just blow through what I thought of this kind of like as a movie stuff, because there's tons of relevant stuff to talk about, and I don't want this video to go too long. I apologize if it does. Okay, story, script, pacing. This is not a story for fans of story or fans of action. That's what the trailer gave us, was like, this is going to be this cool action superpower movie, and it is that. It's got plenty of action, it's got plenty of cool superpowered stuff, but really the action and the superpowered stuff only interrupts the main focus of the film, and that's a movie exploring character and change in that character. And I would say far more than that, it's a movie that's just exploring different ideas. What about this idea? What would we do with this, or what would happen? It's near the end of the movie, I mean, it gets very symbolic and is clearly drawing from 2001's A Space Odyssey. So if you kind of got tripped out and like, what the crap, at the end of 2001, you're going to have a similar experience with this one. I would have liked a slower change of Lucy's character. She starts out as this, we get a quick snapshot of who she is, and then suddenly she really jumps into this kind of evolved version of herself, which her personality does evolve just a little bit further, but most of it happens near the beginning when the initial kind of catalyst takes place that brings about her superpowers and all that kind of stuff. In terms of like actor performances, well, we got Scarlett Johansson, and she does a great job. I've seen her in a few other things. She's she does a decent job, but she's still that Scarlett Johansson. She can be strong, she can be quietly, tearful. She's just, she's Scarlett Johansson. So if you like her in other movies, you're gonna like her in this one. She's not doing anything that's really stretching her a whole lot, I don't think. But it's, it's still good performing. And then we got Morgan Freeman, who lately has just kind of been, used in movies and yet underused in the roles that he's in. I think he's just kind of now fallen into that, old guy with gravitas kind of role. That's what he does these days, And in this movie, he is the scientist whose job is to tell us what is reality, what is scientific reality, what we're meant to accept as truth in this movie. That's the job of Morgan Freeman, scientist extraordinaire. As far as stunts and visuals, they were interesting, they were well done, but they're mostly standard. This wasn't like, whoa, they really experimented with some cool visual stuff. No, not really, but still cool sci-fi, superhuman kind of visuals. The action lacks tension though because of Lucy's power levels. Kind of like how in other movies. I don't want to give comparisons, but anyway, she becomes uber powerful really quick and just gets super duper uber powerful from there. So you're not really worried about her. There's maybe a brief moment you're like, oh man, maybe things are going south for her, but then it's over and you're never worried about her again. So there's not tension provided by the action. Okay, let's see. Well, let's jump into the relevant stuff, because it's a solid movie. But I think that that your worldview that you bring into this, and whether or not you're kind of keeping track of what they're stating as their worldview, is going to have a big effect, I think, on the quality. So this movie has a strong Darwinian, naturalistic, atheistic foundation throughout from the very beginning. They're constantly referring to human development from ape-like creatures, all those kinds of tropes of Darwinian thinking. What's interesting is that this is contradicted by the pursuit of purpose, by the pursuit of meaning, and the film's attempts to evoke a sense of beauty, destiny, and purpose in the back half of the film. Now, Morgan Freeman, as I said, his job as the scientist that we go to for answers, his job in this movie is to explain the nature of reality, to explain the nature of human beings. He expresses the ideas that we're meant to accept as truth. Now, at one point, Lucy asks Dr. Freeman, I'll just call him Dr. Freeman. I can't remember the character's name, but she asks Doc Freeman, what should I do with all this knowledge? And Morgan Freeman says that, he says, well, there's no higher purpose in any organism other than to survive or to pass on knowledge. Yet later, when Lucy is about to do something that might hurt her, Freeman says, I hope we will be worthy of your sacrifice. Okay, hold the phone there, Freeman. In a worldview that has no higher purpose other than to survive or to pass on knowledge, there's no worth or value in anything. You can't logically arrive at that when you have a purposeless existence. You can't arrive at morality. You can't arrive at purpose or value or ideas like worth. Those are just kind of like illusions, constructs that humans have created for whatever reason, as a fluke of their evolution or whatever, a mutation or something like that. That's what you, I think, have to see in those ideas when you're taking on a completely naturalistic, non-theistic worldview, as this movie promotes throughout, and also in the realm of purpose. If there's no purpose, no higher purpose for any life, then you can't assign ideas like value or worth to anything. Even surviving and passing on knowledge should not be concluded to be our purpose. Now, they kind of are in this movie. That's what Morgan Freeman does, but he shouldn't be doing that. At least not in the context of being a scientist and pursuing science. Science observes data and predicts patterns. That's what science does. As a discipline, it's incapable of determining purpose. And so when we try to answer questions of purpose and meaning and destiny in the box of science, science just isn't equipped to do that. And that's why people who look for those answers there will eventually end up with no purpose, no meaning, because science is not going to arrive at that. It can't. It's just not equipped. It's not able to do that. Morgan Freeman's character often professionally, in a professional context, advocates certain moralities and purpose worldviews. But again, I don't think good scientists should do that. Now, in their private lives, sure, absolutely, but in the context of, presenting, like, okay, here's the data, and this data means that morally we should do this, or this data means that our purpose is this. No, that's totally jumping outside the realm of science. What Morgan Freeman's character ought to have been doing, at least in the lecture that he gives at the beginning, and I don't know, it's questionable elsewhere. I think science presents observed data, and then it should let the ethicists, and I don't know if ethicist is a word, I might have just made it up, but if not, then I did mean it, if it really is a word. Anyway, but the people that are skilled and equipped to handle questions of ethics and philosophers, those people should present their case in light of the data that science gives us. Good scientists usually make bad philosophers. As an example, I'd give Stephen Hawking. He had a presentation on the Discovery Channel a couple of years ago, I think, where he talked about the origin of the universe, and then he offered his conclusions about whether or not there's purpose, whether or not there's meaning, whether or not there's a God. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, thank you for the science stuff, but really you're not equipped, Dr. Hawking, to give observations about purpose, meaning. That's not your area of expertise. You're an amateur, and we're giving airtime to an amateur presenting those views, when really we ought to present the data and then hand it over to people that are equipped in logical thinking when it comes to ideas of purpose and meaning and stuff like that. Morgan Freeman also expresses concern over what humanity will do with this knowledge that Lucy is discovering, and that he's basically saying she should pass on. He has reservations even as he recommends that, but Lucy says knowledge doesn't breed chaos, ignorance does. That's a bit of a paraphrase, but that's what she says. Knowledge doesn't breed chaos, ignorance breeds chaos. But this is not true. In humans, advances in knowledge have not reduced the amount of chaos that we put out. Acquired information, I think of Hiroshima or Hiroshima. I can't remember how you pronounce that. I've heard it both ways, I think. But I would call that a great deal of chaos unleashed on that city as the result of harnessing the power of the atom, as it were. But it really wasn't just the learning, the understanding of that knowledge that brought about the explosion. It was human will that brought about the explosion. So knowledge, it just kind of like equips us to, in more drastic ways, make use of our will and our moral choices. So it's I would argue it's human will and moral failure that brings about chaos, not knowledge or a lack of knowledge. Now, evolved Lucy, I'll call her, she becomes cold and emotionless as she evolves. Yet she's aware of this and seems to regret this change in herself. So this is, again, I think that kind of thematic contradiction going on in the movie, where it's clearly promoting as truth a non-theistic, purposeless, completely naturalist worldview, but at the same time, it's trying to make us feel bad that she's leaving these emotions and things behind, which from a purely naturalistic worldview, ultimately, don't really serve a purpose. I mean, maybe in the short term, but in our most evolved state, they're kind of meaningless ideas in that worldview. In Lucy, we're asked to accept a non-theistic worldview with no purpose or meaning, but then we're asked to invest in the desire of the lead character to achieve her purpose, which in itself is pointless. Her purpose of passing on knowledge, acquiring and passing on knowledge. I mean, that's an activity. That's not that's not really I don't see how you get purpose from that. While promoting non-theistic naturalism, the movie also demonstrates the sad consequences of accepting such a worldview. There's just a lot of coldness that comes from that worldview. Now I want to say that atheists can and do, and naturalists can and do often see purpose in their lives. I'm not saying that a person that takes the atheistic worldview cannot have morality and cannot see purpose in their lives, but I believe that when people that accept that naturalistic, that atheistic worldview knowingly, or when they say that I have purpose, I have meaning, I have a set of morals, I think those things are knowingly or unknowingly drawn from outside of a non-theistic worldview, since absolute purpose, and absolute meaning cannot come out of a logical, consistent application of non-theistic naturalism to the way we view our lives. I've heard some atheistic speakers say that we can have proximate meaning, but that really is that's really meaningless. It's not absolute meaning. It's not absolute purpose. It's not absolute moral values. It's just kind of relativism, whatever I kind of decide I'm going to go with, which is an interesting idea in and of itself, because under a completely atheistic, naturalistic worldview, choice is an illusion too. Anyway. While trying to give this movie a sense of wonder, it also presents the future of elevated humanity as one without emotion, without love, without pleasure, where knowledge, just data, this kind of flatline, robotic, one with the universe, yet I don't seem to be enjoying myself at all. Kind of, it's just kind of a weird contradiction of ideas, which maybe the director is like, ooh, that's postmodern. Isn't that profound when you really think about it? No, when you really think about it, it doesn't make sense. Maybe when you really feel about it, it's good. But when you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense. The movie even implies in one shot that we will become gods in our perfected state. So, there's so much in this movie going on in terms of, examination of philosophical, one might even say spiritual ideas, certainly worldview ideas. This movie is dealing with all those things. If you really are interested in that kind of stuff, I think you might enjoy kind of watching this movie, picking it apart. I think you'll enjoy it more if you subscribe to the worldviews that the movie is presenting. If you're like me and see a lot of dysfunction and contradiction and logical errors in the views being presented, then it's still gonna, it's still an enjoyable movie, but there were a lot of distractions for me. I don't think I will buy this movie because I think I'll just be constantly seeing how logically the worldview and ideas being presented break down, and because they're so closely related to the plot, that makes the story break down as well. So now, by contrast, just briefly, let's look at the biblical view of perfected, elevated humanity. Okay, so in Lucy we see the naturalistic, non-theistic, purposeless, future of humanity being presented. But what the Bible tells us about the future of humanity has some similarities but some significant differences. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 42 and 43 in the ESV reads, "So it is with the resurrection of the dead." Little out of context, sorry about that. "What is sown is perishable." So he's talking about the resurrection of our bodies as believers, as those who are putting our faith in Christ to just kind of fix our whole mess. What is sown is perishable. So what is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. So I mean, the future that the Bible tells us about for resurrected humanity, those that at least the believers, those who that trust and rely on Jesus to fix their mess instead of saying there's nothing wrong with me, and if there is, I'll fix it. That's an awesome future that does have power, that does have, I mean, I can imagine that, all the processing power that scientists are saying that, we don't have access to. I think that in our resurrected, perfected bodies, we will have access to possibly all of that. And it'll be an amazing thing. I don't know that it'll play out. I don't think it'll play out like it does in Lucy, but I think it will be amazing. Definitely something awesome to look forward to. Revelation 21 verses 3 and 4 in the ESV says, "I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be,'" what? "They will be God like him?" No, they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. So man, that relationship that we all kind of want, even as believers, we recognize there's this distance, this separation between us and God. That separation is going to be removed, and he's going to be with us in such an amazing way that we can't imagine. It goes on to say, "He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. In fact, no emotions whatsoever." No, it actually doesn't say that. There'll be neither mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. "For the former things have passed away." So is there something between the lines that we could also say, well, it probably means the rest of our good emotions too? We're just going to be like, ah. No. Psalm 16:11 in the ESV says, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence," which we're going to experience in the fullest way possible, as the verses in Revelation say, "in your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." So a very different, with some similarities, view of humanity's future. I think it's a rich and wonderful, amazing future when compared to what we're seeing in Lucy here. Anyway, rated R is Lucy for strong violence, disturbing images, and sexuality. Final score, I was going to say 8.0. I think I'm going to lower that to a 7.5. Maybe for other people, a lot of other people would be more what I would call an 8, but for me, 7.5. I think the logical issues in the worldview that affect the plot and the story and the motivation of the characters is just going to drop it down a little bit for me. So quality 7.5, relevant score 9.0 out of 10, as maybe you can imagine. So there you have it. Please do like, share, and subscribe, or also please leave comments below about what you liked or what you want to see, except for better editing in this segment, because in this segment that is definitely not going to happen. For info about our scoring system and tons of other content and community, visit ChristianGeekCentral.com. I hope you'll come and join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. All right. This is the awkward part. I got to find the button.